books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's empowerment life coach, no other than Miss Zerina Derveni. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Zerina, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. My name is Zerina, and I am a life coach, more specifically, a empowerment life coach, and I help high achieving women understand, purpose and clarity in their lives. And this could be anywhere from something personal, like their own emotional regulation issues, to relationships, to also anything professional. So that's what I do.
Miss Zerina Dervani, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about the smart, successful, and still not fulfilled. Why do so many objectively successful people feel empty despite their accomplishments?
hmm So, a lot of times, high achieving individuals or successful individuals, they're chasing these benchmarks, right? That have to deal with, significance, money, promotions. So, there's a lot of external validation that they're looking after, yet they're feeling this disconnect from their emotional side. And that's, my own journey personally, having been in corporate for many years and chasing these, again, promotions and status and validation was just what I thought I was doing was right. That was the true path to success. So there is this pivotal moment that happens, and everyone's journey is different, where they're like, why am I doing so much yet I feel disconnected? And that's where really, self discovery comes into play. As a life coach, this is what I do: is I help women kind of understand their path and why they're feeling disconnected. And a lot of that is done through personal development work. So it's shifting from this typical IQ way of thinking to more emotional intelligence, and really understanding, what their values are and what their true purpose is beyond, external validation.
Very well said, Miss Rena. Beautifully articulated. How does society definition, oh yes, how does society definition of success, money, status, or accolade sabotage genuine fulfillment?
So I think the focus becomes more about this performance state of being, right? So if you need more money, you got to work more. You're usually, burnt out emotionally, or there's this recognition given to people that just do more, have lack of boundaries, are kind of, again, seeking this external validation, upping their performance, but they're losing sight of really that human connection. It's what fulfills us. So sometimes we see people with, again, lack of boundaries, focusing just on performance and results. So they're being good to the people around them and their environment and their jobs, but they're not being good to themselves, right? So they're neglecting their needs, where the needs of others come first. That's one. And another one that I often find, and this is through working with clients, is their identity or their self worth is also distorted, where they think that, again, their needs are not prioritized, that comes second or third, where other external validation needs are much more important than their own internal needs.
Ms. Zarina, how does ambition become a prison and how can high performers recognize their stock?
So there is this feeling of, why am I not happy? Why is this not enough? There's questions that come up, where when they achieve milestones or they achieve these status recognition, there's a sense of, okay, like I should be happier, right? Or why is this not enough? Or why am I feeling disconnected? It's an internal or intuition feeling, They can't answer it, but it's there. And I think that's the first step of recognizing it.
Indeed, I totally agree with you, Ms. Rina. And how do we untangle who am I from who should I be to uncover authentic desires?
Mhm. It's a journey. You start first with this awakening phase, which is kind of back to who am I? Why am I feeling disconnected? So that's the first wave is the questioning, right? And you're in this self-awareness awakeness, but you still don't know, how to kind of move forward. I recommend that's when you get help, support. So whether it's therapy, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a mentor, that's completely optional to the individual. And then from there, you start to kind of questioning your certain subconscious beliefs, right? We all have subconscious beliefs. We've got our values, we've got our actual beliefs, we've got emotions and behaviors that we're so used to. So we need to question those first before any change can happen or any sort of discovery of who it is that you want to be can happen. And once we understand that, we go into this kind of, I call it the unlearning phase. So you start to really, unlearn some of those old limiting beliefs. You start to unlearn some of those behaviors that were just automatic to you, that were comfortable. And then from there, we go into exploration and finding out who it is that you want to be. But before anything happens there, it's not a quick turnover. It does take time, and a lot of the time and the growth messy stage is spent in the unlearning phase.
Yes, indeed, unlearning phase. Why is it stepping off the treadmill so terrifying, even when it's clearly harming them?
Mhm. Change is scary, and I think we become comfortable, even if our situation isn't at all something that we want or it's challenging. We almost, our nervous system, we almost train it that that's okay. That we can like kind of overcome it. That's okay because we're just so used to doing that for so long. So the idea of stepping off the treadmill, the idea of doing something different, it's scary. Of course, it's going to be scary, right? But this is where building some of the resilience and self awareness come into play. Um, there's this quote that I really like, and I use it a lot with women, especially because we're more prone to feeling guilty, right?
Yes.
And there's the sense of if you're feeling guilty, that means new change is coming. That's all. There's no negative emotion to it, right? So it's like preparing the mind to accept change in a positive way. Because, of course, anything new can be scary if your mind, allows that to be the fear.
How can someone determine if their daily actions align with their true values versus inherited expectations?
Yeah. So you see this a lot with individuals who are kind of stuck with some of the childhood um, beliefs that they have growing up. So oftentimes, I recommend first you have to learn what your values are. You have to learn what your beliefs are outside of your environment. So forget about what your parents taught you, forget about what your friends are doing, forget about what everyone around you is doing. Let's really start to, uncover what it is that you actually value. And it's again a process, right? We may think we value something, but when we actually put it into practice, we'll think, oh, well, that's not really something that's important to you. So, experience plays a really valuable component here where actually going out and experiencing things and exploring to find out, what your value system is and what your belief system is a great way to actually come up with a compass that you can use later on in life to make decisions, right? Whether personal or professional. But there is this component of first understanding what they are outside the noise, outside the environment, outside some of the conditional beliefs that you have set up.
Truly, it's a process, people. A process indeed. What gives someone the courage to redefine success for themselves, even if it means disappointing others?
Unfortunately, burnout is one. So,
For sure.
uh, right? I think
Y-
when we reach that point where just like, ah, that's one. But there are ways that it can happen a lot earlier. Challenges is another one, like breakups in relationships can help you kind of redirect and really understand. I mean, they're a great experience example to really define your identity or your self-awareness. So it really depends, but most often people will go through challenges and then they'll have that peak kind of spark moment where it's like, okay, I have to do something different. Very few people actually go at it from a curiosity perspective, which I think is also interesting. There's a lot of emphasis put on self-awareness, self-awareness, like we're all self-aware, yet what are we actually doing about it? So if you are one of those people that are curious and you want to dig deeper, you can definitely do that. But most often it's during challenging time that force people to shift and really learn more about themselves.
Yes, indeed. How can driven people set boundaries without feeling like they're failing?
Oh, this is a very good question. So you know when you ask a question like that to somebody who is full out performing, successful, living in this kind of performance state of external validation, they would laugh at you and say, what boundaries? Because that's really what got them to success, right?
Yes.
But I think it's really understanding that boundaries is actually a place from self love. So it's how you're treating yourself. And boundaries are only for you. A lot of time people think boundaries are for others. They're actually just for you, right? Similar to your value system, your boundaries are just for you. How can you set something like this up if you're a high achiever? It's bringing it back to basics on what is really important to you. So for example, for me, emotional boundaries are very, very important. And what I mean by that is having a boundary where with myself, it's an agreement, I don't feel responsible for the reaction of others. Because I know that I can actually handle a lot of situations very cool, calm, and collective. I've made that agreement with myself, and it's helped me so much personally and professionally. So, as you can see, like having a boundary, just like an emotional boundary or even a communications boundary where I only tolerate respectful language, right? So
Yes.
having those kind of boundaries actually makes me a better person and a professional. And it's really relooking at boundaries as a form of self-love versus maybe, high achievers can see it as a limiting factor to their success.
Very well said again, Ms. Rena. Beautifully articulated. As empowerment life coach, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short term goals are just to continue to enhance my content. I'm currently being certified as a brain coach, which won't change my title, but really it's getting deeper into the subconscious work that I do with my clients. And it's really digging in even more than maybe some of the surface level subconscious conscious work I'm doing. It's even tapping into more of why it is that we do what we do and how our brain is its own beast itself, let alone with our emotions, right? So that's a short-term goal for me that I'm doing. Another goal that I have is I actually would love to have my own podcast, maybe in a year or two, and have a platform where I can talk more about the challenges that high achieving women encounter and just reach a broader audience.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Rena, and looking forward for that podcast. And you are most welcome to come back and let's promote on Book 101. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there like to become an empowerment life coach?
I would say first, do the research, do your homework, maybe speak to some coaches before becoming a life coach. I took the journey very seriously. Like you are dealing with people's lives, so you want to make sure that it is something that you can handle, but more importantly be good at, right? I think the impact is very great. So first, getting some sort of experience of either shadowing a life coach or speaking to a life coach, I would say start there. And then, second, look at your own story. What are you so good at, right? Like, what have you overcome in your life? How can you use your own story to help others? Because I do believe that we'll do well if we do what we're good at, right? So, learning more about your strengths and being able to bring that to the real world and to your clients is actually going to be much more beneficial than just maybe picking a generic route or picking a route that you think will make you more successful. So using your own strengths and then finding your niche market would be a second advice. And lastly, it's really going out there and trying your best and putting yourself out there for clients. I think that's what makes a life coach successful is when they are um, much more like able to promote themselves and comfortable promoting themselves, and they're outspoken and they have a point of view. I think that's really important.
Truly very important. To sell yourself, people, sell yourself.
Yes, but know your values before you sell yourself.
True. You know your achievement first. Miss
Exactly.
Serena, thank you so much for your advice. And can you recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Yeah, I recommend Boundary Boss by Terry Cole. I think this is a fabulous book. I've read a lot of personal development, but this specific book really stands out because it talks about, as early as your childhood, why sometimes we have leaky boundaries or our boundaries are distorted. So it comes from a place of understanding and explaining before it goes to any solutioning. And then really I think it's got the same messaging that I have in my coaching, which is, boundaries are a form of self-love, and you can't have self-love without having specific boundaries in place. So again, it's a great book. It helped me with my journey where I got out of the performance state to more of a state of being. And I think the book is great on really helping you align what your boundaries are. There are scripts there, there are great stories that are shared that I think can relate with many people. And it's a great platform to start your self discovery journey and start, putting in some boundaries in your own life.
Well, thank you for that recommended book, Ms. Serena, and hoping that our listeners or people watching us will empower to that book. How do you handle criticism from peers, family when stepping back from traditional success metrics?
So, this is where it's really important to make decisions that you're aligned with, because when you're aligned and you have a vision, criticism becomes quiet, right? I think it still definitely hurts, especially when it's from people that you value or are close to you. But you feel this need to just do and not really explain. So for me, I think it's important to stay true to what my core values are and what my vision is for myself. And then when criticism comes, I actually take that as an opportunity to explain, because some people sometimes don't understand. Like we all have different ways of thinking and different ways of doing things. So that mindset shift from, okay, well, maybe this person needs me to explain it so they can better understand, has really helped me handle criticism from a place of not being defensive or I'm being attacked. It's there is an opportunity here to explain a situation better. But again, that's because I'm just so aligned with the decisions I'm making and the life choices I'm making. I can do that from a place of calm and clarity.
Clarity indeed, people. Clarity. And what does impact look like when detached from burnout culture?
Oh, I think. impact for me is how you're providing value versus significance, like how you're creating these, again, statuses and promotions. So if you focus on the value that you're providing and that is your default motivation, then naturally you're going to gain success, but you're going to gain success the right way versus if you're focusing on just status or significance, then you're going to just perform and overperform and again have leaky boundaries and maybe not be so good to yourself and to your health and mental well-being, that when you do get a burnout, either the burnout is going to force you to change or the burnout is going to be a temporary shift and you're going to go back to old patterns. So I highly recommend anyone who's in a burnout to just consider what value can they truly bring on a consistent basis, because then they'll be able to operate much differently and in a state of being versus what significance are they bringing to a situation, because they're going to be overperforming and they're going to be reaching another burnout soon. So that self-awareness is important.
Self awareness in the people you need to aware of everything. How does shifting focus from what will I achieve or how do I want to live transforms daily choices?
I don't know if I understood. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes, how does shifting focus from what will I achieve to
Right.
how do I want to live?
hmm So maybe the focus first starts with understanding your short term and long term goals, right? I think, we can't do without knowing what we're working towards. So having short term goals can be anywhere from 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to long term, 1 year to 5 years. That's going to help you understand how you should be in those time periods so that you can achieve some of those successes.
Very well said, Miss Zerina. Very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course, my book 101 review in fifth season, comedy 101 in second season, and Food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 Love Letters in third season, Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in each fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Zerina, if listeners feels this tension today, what's one action to start closing the gap between success and fulfillment?
Um, I would have to say when there is the inner voice asking you, why is this not enough? Listen to it. And just listening to it and validating it is definitely an action that you can do right now. And I encourage people to go deeper than just self-awareness. So self-awareness is a great start, but there's so much work to be done beyond that. And a really good suggestion from there is just start understanding what your value system is. Like have a list of your top 10 value system and use that as a compass to start making decisions from that point on.
Miss Zerina Derveni, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy as well as your business or any projects that you are doing right now?
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, you can reach out at www.zerinalifecoach.com. There's a contact section there, and you can reach out to me directly or even on Instagram at Zerina Life Coach. So I'm always happy to hear from people and discuss any questions or challenges that they might be dealing with.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Zerina Derveni because if you support her, more and more and more empowering coaching to come. So, Miss Zerina, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.